This is Dan of Blue Dog Farms, head cowologist, and I've been working on this tractor for quite some time, and I finally got it up and running. But I'm going to show you a clip I made where I kind of go over everything I've done to this tractor, like all the wiring and the new engine and lights, all that kind of good stuff, everything that I fixed. If you haven't seen the video of what I started with when I bought this tractor, I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. It'll probably be the end, one of the end videos as well. But I suggest you watch that first, or at least take a look at it so you see what I'm starting with. And let's see what it took to get this tractor at pretty much 100%. Here it is. All right. So I've got it coming back together. Most of it's painted. It's got this really kind of almost primer looking red that the frame is supposed to be, and then the tin works all Allis Chalmers orange. So a few things I have left to do. I'll go around and I'll tell you all the things that I've done and what I've got left to do. This was all rusted out, so the battery holder portion of this bracket is gone. I cut these bolts off because they were rusted in there. But I'm going to mount this piece of angle and bolt it down here just to hold the battery down, and I'll probably put a couple of chain link on either side. Use a ratchet strap, just a short little ratchet strap to hold the battery down. This is this radiator. I filled it up just the other day, yesterday I guess, and there's like 5 of these tubes that go down in the radiator that are leaking. They're just peeing out water. I pressure washed the outside and the inside, and I got a bunch of brown mud out, and I must have uncovered some holes that were already there. It wasn't leaking before, but boy, it's sure peeing out water now, so I've got a new radiator coming. This front hub is there's always been an issue with the steering. It steered real hard even with the power steering, and this is why. That hub bearing is shot. So I've got both the upper and the lower bearing for that. Needs to be replaced yet, and then I'll paint it. Oh, let's see. This is a new. So I took off every wire and replaced them all except one. This is the new single, 1 gauge battery cable to the starter, but all the other wires, I mean that's new as well. But here's what you might call the firewall. I put on a new fuse block with 20th century at least, if not 21st century fuses, the little automotive push ones. You had these weird little fuse lengths that I've never seen before. The tractor is made by Fiat. It's probably, back in the 70s or 80s in Europe was common, but not something you see here. So real quick, what this is, of course this is the fuses. When you turn the key on, this relay closes and it provides power to the fuse block. This is a flasher for the lights for when you're going on the road. It'll flash. There's 2 main reasons why electrical stuff on tractors doesn't work. One is that the switches get dirty, like the start switch and the glow plug switch, and when you turn it, it doesn't produce enough volts because of the crud in the switch to make the like the starter work. It's real common on Kubotas, or the glow plugs work. Well, this doesn't have glow plugs. It has a manifold heater. Let's see if you can see that here. It's right here. This right here, and that's new. The old one looked like it was leaking. The way this manifold heater works is the return line here it goes through this little reservoir here, and when you use the manifold heater, it takes a small amount of diesel out of this little reservoir from the return line, puts it into the manifold and warms it up, so you get warm diesel going in to help it start. So that's new. Instead of glow plugs, it's got that manifold heater. So in order to make sure that there's enough voltage delivered to both the starter and to this manifold heater, which by the way will run just with the switch on the dash, I put these two solenoid relays in here. The upper one's for the starter. This is the control coming from the start switch, and this runs the solenoid on the starter. It's kind of overkill, and even more overkill is this one down here that runs the manifold heater. And then these are Fords, so they've got the extra little deal to turn on your coil, and I use that to run a light on the dash. So we'll go over that in a minute. The second common issue with tractors when electrical stuff doesn't work is ground, and so I put in two of these bolts right here. It's just a bolt through the firewall, and every ground wire runs to this. There's another one under the dash, and all the dash grounding goes to that, and then there's a wire that comes up and connects to this one, and then this goes to the battery ground on the other side of the engine. So it goes directly, eventually goes directly to the battery, so that there aren't any grounding issues. All the grounding goes through that, except for the starter that's bolted to the engine. Let's see, I got a new gauge cluster and had to wire it in. I did use the plugs from the wire loom on the old wire harness, cut them off, and then I soldered on new wires and ran them to where they needed to go. Every connection's a solder connection except for a couple of plugs like this. All the ends that terminate like these that go into the fuse box, these are all soldered on and then have the heat shrink tube over them. So the gauges are all new. The hour meter reads 0. I'll be taking a picture of the old hour meter so that I've got it in my records how many hours it's got on it. I looked and looked. Oh, this is the other ground, the ground screw right here on the back side of this. I've got a bunch of different ground wires going to it too. So I looked and looked for a key switch. The old key switch had the lights on it, and I don't care for that. So you turn the first click and it would just turn the ignition on. Second click would be some lights, and then the following 3 or 4 clicks would be different lights. So I don't care for that. So I replaced it with just an on-off switch on a key. The trouble was most of the on-off key switches that I could find advertised and as something good is that you can take the key out in the on position, and all I could see was the key falling out in the field, and then I would lose it and not be able to shut off my ignition. The battery would run down. So I finally found this one, and it is for a scooter, and so my on-off key switch is a scooter key switch, interestingly enough. This is a switch, just an on-off switch for the flashers. This is the light switch. This way is just the front lights and the dash lights, and this way is the front and the rear lights and the dash lights. And then this button over here is for a horn that's not on yet. Because of what happened before, I installed an oil pressure gauge that wasn't there before. I just drilled a hole in the dash and put a mechanical pressure gauge on it. So this light here in the book is supposed to be for the alternator fault. It's got a big G on it. I bought a different alternator that's just a single wire and there's no ground fault. wire to run to the dummy light. So what I did is I hooked this light up to the manifold heater. It's got the big G, so you know, you could think of it as a glow plug. Anyway, when you turn that on, it shows the big G there. This is supposed to tell you that the lights are on when you turn the lights on, and then this one is an oil pressure light, which wasn't working before with the old dash system, and it works now. Plus I've got the gauge here. It does have a temperature gauge, but it didn't have an oil pressure gauge, so I've got one. Then there's this little light here. It's blue, got a little blue lens and a light bulb behind it, and I don't have that in the book, and I can't find anywhere what that light is supposed to be, so I wanted to use it for something. The PTO engagement switch, which is under this cover right here, when I took that cover off, I touched the switch and it just kind of fell out and the spring popped out. It was obviously not being used, so I found a limit switch with two pulls, both normally open and normally closed, so that when it's in the off position like that, it'll start. When you engage the PTO, that switch is open, so that you can't run the starter if your PTO is engaged. Well, I want that then to turn that light on, so that when you've got your PTO on and you're running your tractor, that little blue light's on, so the kids will like have some sort of indication that, oh hey, I need to be careful, the PTO's on. I got all new knobs that I haven't put on yet. I didn't take these off, I just taped them when I painted. So anyway, that's under here is the PTO switch. Now all the wiring seems to work. I don't have the lights hooked up yet. These are the SO cords that'll go out to the back lights, and this is the one for the front lights and the horn. So I don't have those hooked up yet because they're just not on yet. So I haven't tested that, but everything else, all the other wiring seems to work so far. Except for this little blue light, and I'm assuming, since it's such a simple little circuit, that probably that light bulb's burnt out. It's just whatever light bulb was in there when I got it with 7,000 hours on it, so it is probably just burnt out. I'll replace it with a LED most likely. This is the ignition switch here, so you turn it this way and that's just the starter. You turn it this way, one click is the manifold heater, and the second click is the manifold heater and the starter. Now I did get it running this morning. I got all the fuel purged, air purged out of the fuel, and I noticed if you run this too long, like more than about 15 or 20 seconds, that the fuel catches on fire. So I'll know now only to hold that for about 10 seconds when I'm trying to start it in cold weather. I did try to put a block heater in here, but there's three. I know in a previous video I said there weren't any soft plugs. There are. It's on the other side of the engine. I'll walk over there real quick. So while the starter was out, I pulled this one here. I'm not sure you can see it on the camera, but it's right in line with the cylinder, and there's only like a ½ inch or less, ½ inch, ½ inch of space in the water jacket there, so the block heater won't go in. It's too, it's just not enough room for it. So I'm gonna, for now, just not do a block heater and see how this manifold heater works. Also, this valve here, I tried to replace it. It turns out that that's not a pipe thread, that's some sort of a metric straight thread. The little handle for shutting it on and off is gone, but you can, it still works, you just have to use pliers. I'll probably just live with that, since it's not an easy thing to find, metric threaded stuff. I tried to, I measured it for drilling it out to a 3/8 pipe thread, which it's close, it's a little bit bigger, but I measured the threads on the pipe and the drill that it takes for a 3/8 pipe thread, and it wouldn't consume all of the threads that are in there. And if I went to the next size up, or I think it was quarter inch pipe thread, and if I went to 3/8, I was concerned that I would break the welded bond here and fuel would leak out. So I just put it back in. And as it turns out, the drain plug on the tank on the other side is leaking. So now that I have it running and all the fuel purged out, I gotta drain it all again anyway and fix the leaking plug. So I'll have to purge it all again. I've got a new odometer cable. It was working when I took it off. I just got a new one since I was getting a new, all new gauges and everything. I went ahead and got a new one, and it's hooked in. Of course, that's a new air filter or oil filter. You can see the paint I got on it. This I replaced. It had the under the rear axle exhaust with the muffler down under the axle. I don't like those. I prefer them to go straight up. So I've got that in a straight up muffler before. And then I got this used, and I bent my exhaust pipe on a tree, and bending it back, this just broke off. So this one's brand new. And I just put it back on. Oh, what else? This is the only wire I kept right here. That's the grounding cable. Here's the ground wire that comes from all the controls, and those two bolts that I showed you. I took the paint off behind it so everything would ground good. This is the oil pressure light. This is the oil pressure gauge, little tube. I've got it covered up in that sheathing so it protects it a little bit. So we're going to finish this up. I'm painting everything. I'm painting the wheels. Oh yeah, the hitch. I remember on the first video I showed this. The hitch is broken. I've got that piece, this piece, off of out of a Allis Chalmers graveyard. So we're going to replace that. After that, I got to heat up some parts to get the pins out. So I'll paint that after and paint this. The power steering hoses up here, I figured there was never going to be an easier time to change these because they kind of go back up here underneath the radiator, and so I went ahead and changed both the return and the high pressure. So I'm still waiting on the two rubber elbows. There's an elbow that goes onto here, and then it goes up and over, and there's another metal tube, and then it elbows into the air cleaner, which goes on the front here. So I'm waiting on those. They're coming from Canada. I'm waiting on the new radiator. I'm also waiting on a universal joint for the front drive line that I had to order twice. I ordered that, and if you look real close, see there's a lot of play in that shaft that the brake pedal's right on, and that's because I changed that shaft and the clutch pedal, because there's like 6 inches sideways movement in the clutch pedal, and so I changed the shaft and the clutch pedal, and when I had to beat the shaft out, and somehow that bushing just disappeared. I don't know if it went inside into a cavity that I can't get to, or if it fell out, or where it went, but I have that ordered with universal joint from the Allis Chalmers dealer, and it magically disappeared in the house somewhere, so I had to order it again. Yeah, well, it's like 180 bucks. So anyway, as soon as I get the bushing, I can fix this and then put the foot plates back on and start putting the fenders together. So I didn't film any of the work that I've done so far, but it's been an extensive amount of work, from completely rebuilding the engine to all the little things I just detailed. Oh yeah, and there's my fuel pump. You know how when you're changing fuel filters and you gotta bleed out the air, you got the little thumb pump on the manual pump, and you have to push it like 9 million times to bleed out all the air. In fact, the book says to only change one fuel filter at a time. I think because it's so hard to bleed out if you do them both. Well, now you turn the key and the fuel pump comes on, and you can just open the bleed screws and get all the air out real easy. So we'll film some of the rest of the stuff that I'm going to do. I'm really happy about all the wiring, how it turned out. I'm sure somebody else could make it look prettier, but as long as it works, that's what what I'm concerned with. So we'll film some more of this. I had to get new wheels. Here's the new wheels. I painted them. They came with tires that are not completely wore out like when I first got the tractor. There's about 50% left. So she'll look pretty snazzy when we're done. We'll get some more of this banged out. Well, we finally got it out of the shop, and it's all painted up, so this is the maiden voyage after it's been rebuilt. We're going to be mowing with a 7-foot John Deere flail mower, and we'll see how it goes.
So, first run today. Got the new alternator on finally. Everything seems to be working good. It does steer a little hard. I mean, this tractor always steered hard, even with the power assist. But with the new bearings I put in the front knuckles, I think maybe they're a little bit tight. If a couple of days it doesn't loosen up a little bit, I'll probably add a couple of shims. It's always taken a long time to turn this tractor around. It's not changed. It's just how these are with the 4-wheel drive. But yeah, got into some wet spots. It did fine. I didn't even get close to getting stuck. Real happy with the new tires and wheels. Overall, I'm really happy to have it back. I don't know if you can see this, but there's orange paint on my tire because when I drove it out of the shop, I ran over my last Allis Chalmers orange paint can and broke it. Yeah, oh well. Anyway, I'm going to head back to the house, I think, for some supper and call it a day. I've got some more work to do tomorrow. Looking for this tractor in upcoming videos. And it's a brand new tractor, more or less. I look forward to having a long, prosperous relationship with the old girl. I want to address one thing about mowing. Some of you guys may be wondering, hey, you do regenerative farming, you do rotational grazing, why are you mowing your pasture? Well, it got away from me, and a bunch of it went to seed. And so I'm only mowing it down about 5 or 6 inches and cutting the seed head off of it. What will that do is cause that plant to have to regrow another stalk of grass, because once it reaches this state, it's tough and the cows don't want to eat it. All the nutrition's up here in the seed head instead of in the blade. So when you cut the seed head off, it makes the grass start over again and have to grow another blade. So the cows won't be in here for probably another couple weeks, and there'll be even more growth then. Just trying to maintain a good healthy pasture. Don't want any of the weeds to go to seed. Mowed over a bunch of multifloral rows. Hate that stuff. I do know that it won't hold up to mowing. If you keep it mowed down, the grass will overtake it and it'll die. So we'll keep it mowed now that I got my tractor back. So anyway, looking at a good stand of grass here. This is Dan at Blue Dog Farms, head coologist and chief tractor driver, and you have a blessed day.